Have you ever had a neighbor who didn't like you? I have. And you know why? It's because of my dog. The person living next to me has been causing problems ever since I moved here. He walks around without a shirt in the summer, showing off like he's tough. But honestly, he's not that strong. His wife, who's quite small, does most of the tough stuff at their home. I could have forgiven him for not cutting the grass, but that wasn't the issue. They had a big, noisy truck, and guess who fixed it? Yep, his wife did. She needed a ladder just to get inside that huge truck. When I realized he was all talk and no action, any worry I had disappeared. But let's talk about what really happened. One quiet Sunday morning, I went outside to get the newspaper. Usually my wife's small dog comes with me. This morning, while I was looking for the paper, the little dog went to the grass to do his business. I didn't really care much at first. Sometimes I needed to grab a bag and clean up after my dog. I don't like having dog poop in my yard, but I'm not super upset about it either. I mean, dogs need to go somewhere, right? So, as I was picking up the mess and getting ready to go back inside, I heard a loud knock on my door. It was really early, 7:30 in the morning, and this person was shouting about my dog being in their yard. I tried to explain and even showed them the bag I was going to use to clean it up. But they didn't want to listen. I tried to pick up the mess, but you know what? It was still on my property. That made me angry. I threw away the mess and went back inside. But then this guy did something really wrong. He threatened to hurt my wife's dog if it went into his yard again. I couldn't ignore that. My wife really loves her dog, and I love her a lot. So I confronted him and shouted back. He poked me, and I pushed him away. He fell down and looked surprised. I thought everything was done, but less than 2 minutes later, he was banging on our door again. My wife woke up, and our dog was barking like crazy. I was really mad when I opened the door, and the guy was standing there with a gun. Someone shot at me, just barely missing, and almost hit my wife instead. I closed the door, thinking there might be more shots, but thankfully there weren't. I wanted to call the police, but my phone had no signal. We got really scared because we couldn't reach anyone for help. We stayed inside, checking that all the windows and doors were locked really well. Our hearts were racing, and our dog wouldn't stop barking. We were really worried about what the person who shot at us might do next. Many hours went by, and it was really quiet outside. We looked out carefully but didn't see him anywhere. We were too scared to leave our house because it didn't feel safe, and we couldn't use our phones. We talked about running away, but it seemed too dangerous. When night came, it got even scarier because it was so dark outside. We stayed awake, getting scared by every noise we heard. Finally, when the first light of morning came in through the windows, we went outside to check. Luckily, our neighbor's house was empty, and we felt relieved. We told the police everything, and they found proof that a gun had been fired. They listened to what we had to say. Our neighbor disappeared, which made us really worried, but we were okay. Time passed, and after a while, the authorities found the neighbor in another place. They arrested him for doing other bad things. His wife said sorry and explained that she was really scared of him. They left, and a new family moved in. Our neighborhood felt peaceful again. The whole thing made us really nervous, but it helped us realize how much we love feeling safe at home. It was a scary experience, but we were happy that we didn't get hurt in the end. I used to live with my girlfriend in a small house we rented. It was our first place, and we were really happy about it. We found it for only $500. It had 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and was just 850 square feet, not too big. The neighborhood wasn't the best, a bit rough, but we thought if we were careful, we'd be fine. We didn't have a lot of money. Both of us had jobs, but they didn't pay well. I worked as a garbage collector, often working long hours from early morning to late at night to earn more. My girlfriend, Lily, worked at a small local salon. She got paid without it being recorded for taxes, which was helpful. We were also both full-time students in college, so we were rarely home most days because we were busy with work and school. Lily and I had different routines. I used to leave really early, around 6:30 in the morning, and sometimes I didn't get home until 7:30 or 8 at night. By then, Lily was already asleep. I'd quickly eat something and go straight to bed. Even on weekends, it was pretty much the same. I worked a bit more for extra money, and Lily always made dinner for me before I rushed off to class. One night, I came home, but Lily wasn't there. I got worried when she didn't pick up my calls. I waited for a while, but she still didn't answer. I got really scared. After waiting for 30 minutes with no response, I decided to call the police. I told them Lily was missing and hoped they could help find her. 2 days passed, and there was no news. I was really worried. Then, while I was getting the mail, I bumped into our neighbor. He seemed strange, but I didn't know why. I thought he might have information about Lily. So I tried talking to him, asking if he'd seen Lily lately. He acted really odd. That's when I got suspicious and called the police on him, thinking he might be involved in Lily's disappearance. The police couldn't do anything without evidence or permission to search his home. I had a strong feeling that something was very wrong with him. So that night, when I saw him leave, I secretly went into his house. It was really untidy, like the places you see on TV where people collect lots of stuff. I looked everywhere, calling out for Lily. Suddenly, I heard her shouting from downstairs. That man took her away without permission. I rescued her and called the police. To avoid trouble for entering his place without permission, we had to stretch the truth a little. We told them I heard her screaming and ran in to help. Thankfully, they didn't accuse me of anything. Police began looking into things, but they couldn't find any clear answers. The neighbor said he didn't do anything, and there wasn't solid proof to say he did. Then something unexpected happened. A security camera at a store nearby recorded the neighbor acting strangely near our house on the night Lily went missing. Showed him hanging around, seeming really anxious. The video helped the police get permission to look in his home. They discovered some really unsettling things like tape, ropes, and other scary stuff. This led to his arrest because they suspected he might have kidnapped someone and hurt them. When they looked deeper, they found out he had done similar things before, but this was the first time he got caught. Lily went through a tough time. She had to tell her story and see that person in court. Remembering those moments was hard. But in the end, things turned out fair. That person got put in jail, and we left that area quickly. It's something we never thought would happen, but we're happy we're past it now. It reminds us to trust our feelings and always be careful, even if things seem okay at first glance. Before I continue to the next story, if you are interested in earning from YouTube without showing your face, or without making videos by yourself using artificial intelligence, like the video that you are watching right now, then I have a special free training for you. Check the first link in the description below to get instant access. I used to live in a small apartment on the ground floor. There was a guy named Mark who lived next to me. 2 other people also lived nearby. One evening, when the sun was setting, Mark knocked on my door. He was a bit chubby, had brown hair in a bowl-shaped style, wore glasses, and had on a button-up shirt. He needed help with his dog for the weekend because he had to go to work quickly. I said yes after thinking about it and got his phone number, just in case. Now I see that was a bad idea, but at that time, I was only trying to be a helpful neighbor. We talked about games, and I shared how I really enjoy video games and Dungeons and Dragons. It seemed like we had similar interests, but I only meant it in a friendly way. I made sure he noticed my wedding ring because my husband was out of town for work. I didn't think too much about it. On Monday, I returned his key. He wanted to repay me, but not with money. He mentioned his office had an escape the room event, and he could bring a friend. I agreed, thinking he was nice, and we could be friends. That day, I was not feeling well. I texted him to say I couldn't go and told him not to worry about giving me the money back. After that, I fell asleep. He messaged me a few times in the following weeks, but I didn't understand what he meant until later. He wondered why I didn't ask him to join when I was playing Dungeons and Dragons. I was surprised because I hadn't told him I was playing. Maybe he heard me talking with my friend in the hallway. After that, stuff got strange. Whenever I took my dog Cortana outside to the grassy area, she'd go nuts, barking at Mark's window. It was weird because she never did that before. Then Mark started acting odd. He'd come out stretching or knock on my door, but he'd leave when I didn't answer. He messaged me later, asking if we could have dinner together. I didn't know how to respond. Then, 3 minutes later, he texted again, seeming upset that I hadn't replied. I was really surprised, and even my digital assistant Cortana noticed. I felt scared at home, worrying about what might happen if he tried to come over. I talked to my mom about it, and she advised me to firmly let him know I was married and that his behavior wasn't okay. Guess what? It worked. He stopped bothering me only after I mentioned my husband. But even after that, Cortana was still acting protective near his window. I left where I was living. Mark, the person I left, didn't contact me afterward. Then a few weeks later, the police called me. They were looking into Mark for doing strange things, like following or bothering someone. They wanted to know if I had any odd experiences with him. I shared everything I knew. It was frightening to think about what might have happened if I hadn't moved or if I hadn't talked about my husband. The police said they would watch him closely. The thing that really bothered me the most was when I saw him just looking out of his window. It seemed like he was waiting for something, and I didn't want to stay and see what it was. Leaving that place was the best choice I made. It feels good to be in a new home, far from that unsettling feeling. Something surprising happened when the police learned that Mark had done similar things in his old neighborhood too. It wasn't the first time. They found out he'd been warned before for bothering and acting badly towards his neighbors. It was scary to know I wasn't the only one he'd bothered. During the investigation, they found out that Mark put secret cameras in places where everyone in the apartment building hangs out. This broke the privacy rules for all the people living there. The police found proof of this in Mark's place. It really scared me to think about how much he was watching us. It made me feel really uneasy. I felt better after I moved out of there, away from that creepy situation.